The Modern Man tutorial. Body count doesn't matter to simps and incels. However, it does matter to guys of high quality, right? Guys who work hard to make something of themselves. So clearly, they would have, standards, requirements for their significant other, right? For who they're willing to get into a relationship with, even potentially marriage, right? Have kids with. So they're going to have standards for that. So that makes sense, right? Because they work hard for it. But guys living in their mom's basement, guys who barely have body counts of their own, it's ironic that they have the audacity to talk about body count matters when they themselves can barely pull a chick with a low body count, let alone a chick with a high body count, right? So, in general, it'd be hard for most of these guys to pull a chick. So the whole idea of even mentioning that high body count matters. Like, the only time you should be talking about high body count is when you're in the position and you have multiple chicks to choose from. You have options, so then you can, you have the leverage, right? And you can be like, all right, yeah, low body count matters to me. But when you barely have any females, giving you any attention, responding to your DMs and whatnot, the audacity to be like, oh, I have standards, when you don't even meet their standards to even get their attention in the first place, let alone, talk about you have standards. Like, yeah, you can have standards you want to have when you're at the point where your standards matter. But until you're at the level where females are simping for you, females, are chasing you, DMing you instead of the other way around, right? Or at least replying to your DMs, the audacity of like, oh, high body count matters. It doesn't for y'all. And I'm talking about like the Simps and the Incels and most betas, right? Body count doesn't matter to y'all. Most of y'all know that. Most of y'all admit it. Most of y'all don't care about body count. Well, of course you don't. Because you're interested in being added to the body count, because that would give you a body. Yes, it would give her more bodies to her count, but at least it'll give you one more to yours, especially if you have none. So of course you want to add one body to your body count. So no surprise that most guys don't care. And I could say, yeah, fuckboys as well don't care about body count, because again, they're trying to add to their body count, so they don't care about her body count. But when the idea is you're trying to have a relationship and it's not about body count, as in, you're not trying to add to your body count. You're actually looking for somebody of importance, somebody of significance, somebody of value. Then it makes sense that you will, settle down, stop adding to your body count unnecessarily, right? Instead of just going from one chick to the next, you actually consider the possibility that the next chick you talk to, date and whatnot, could be wifey. Then that's where the body count stuff like that, starts coming in, because now you're using it to vet potential long term. Body count, it's not just the number that's important. It's why the number exists that is important. I mentioned that before. There's like, it's not that the number is being high that is the issue. It's why it's high that is the real thing. Because more likely the reason why her body count is high is because she has issues that led to her to keep adding those bodies, right? Because we all know women really 9 out of 10 times have sex because of emotions, aka love. Not because, they can, right? It's because they actually care about the guy. So if they have a high body count, that means they cared about a lot of guys. That means they kept falling in love, essentially, right? Multiple times. But those didn't last, which is why the body count is high. Because if she found somebody to, love and he loved her back and they stayed together for long-term relationships, by having a long-term relationship, that means you will have less bodies. So a female with a lower body count clearly was in either A, long-term relationships, or B, she maintained her body count low because she was looking for, the right guy who's worthy, which is commendable. But in this day and age, it's very rare for a female to hold out for the right guy because, they want to assume that any guy, if they are attracted to them, is the right guy, but that's not how it actually works, right? The right guy is more than what he looks like. It's more than what he says. There's more to it, right? It's how he acts, how he behaves, the lifestyle that y'all live together, right? The decisions that are made when y'all together, and so many factors that go into the relationship other than looks, right? Other than sex for long term. So if she is going from one guy to the next, then that means she's not good for long term, and that's one of the main reasons why body count matters. But for simps and incels, of course it don't matter to y'all because y'all trying to add to y'all body count, so of course it doesn't matter. So of course it's not a requirement for y'all. But the irony is there's a lot of guys who, again, will use the whole body count thing to disqualify females that they can't even pull even if they wanted to. Even if they didn't care about the body count, they couldn't pull these chicks anyway. So that tends to be funny sometimes when I see guys like that, guys that clearly are not popular with the ladies, have the audacity to talk about, body count matters when it has nothing to do with them. These same types of guys will also be the ones to talk about, high value man and this, that, and third. Women have ridiculous standards, and it's like, the thing is you don't meet none of those standards, which is why you see it as ridiculous. And I've made videos talking about that. Even if they have these ridiculous standards, you can still pull them. You can still be in a relationship with these ladies if you're the exception. If you're the one that she's like, yeah, screw my standards. My standards don't matter. This guy is awesome. The thing is, a lot of you guys don't know how to be awesome. And part of it is because y'all dwell on shit that don't matter. Like when it comes to your life, like you'll complain about body count, but you don't have a good bank account, right? Your bank account's in the negatives. Or you'll complain about, her going out all the time. The idea of like, oh, I wouldn't like my girl going to the clubs or going on girls' trip, blah, blah, blah. But y'all barely leave the house. Y'all in your mom's basement playing video games and jerking off to porn. But have the audacity to talk about girls' trips and clubs and stuff. That stuff only applies to guys who are in the position where they can afford for her to not have to go to the club, not have to go on girls' trips. If she wants to go on a trip, you can easily fly her anywhere around the world because you got it like that. She wants to dance and shit like that, you can literally afford to have a DJ and some people to come over to the crib, and y'all can make a club in y'all living room, like, because you got it like that. Those are the types of guys that can talk about girls' trips and clubs being an issue for them. But for you guys that are in your mom's basement and whatnot, or in not a optimal living situation, has the fact that y'all have the audacity to be online complaining about body count and all these other talking points that has nothing to do with you. You're not part of it. You're not part of the conversation. Just because you can talk, just because you can comment, doesn't mean you're part of the conversation. You're not. So stop trying to add yourself to the conversation that you're not a part of. There'll literally be guys talking about like high value this, high value that, you know, oh, don't get married, she'll take half of everything, blah, 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 type of nonsense. Is like, but you work at McDonald's. Half of what? Half of your minimum wage paycheck? What are you talking about? Half of what? You can't even afford the wedding, yet you want to complain about the divorce. That's the thing. You can't even afford to get married, yet you want to complain about divorce, which is what you really complain about when you say, don't get married, guys. It's like most of y'all can't even afford to get married, but have the audacity to be like, oh, don't get married, guys. It's not worth it. Y'all can't afford it. All right, like most of you guys can't afford the wedding. And if you can't afford the wedding, then you definitely can't afford the divorce. And a real man plans for both. He plans for the wedding, right? He plans for marriage, but he also plans for divorce. You need money for the wedding, right? Then you need money to have the marriage, right? So you need money to maintain the marriage, right, and the lifestyle and whatnot. And if there's a divorce, have money for the divorce, right? Have your finances all set up in a way that if divorce does happen, it's not 50% of your worth, right? Of your wealth. If you're smart, you're a businessman, you set it up where, she gets a nice check, but that's it. It's a nice check. It's not half of your wealth. And another thing is, I always see that always annoys me, guys complain about, oh, she took half and now I'm struggling. It's like, wait a minute, so you having half of what you used to have, now you're struggling? Then that means you were barely living, right? You were barely making it. If having half of your wealth, half of your income suddenly makes you struggle, then you were borderline struggling in the first place. Because for me, it's like, half of $1 billion, it's still millions of dollars. You should still be able to live off of millions of dollars. There's a problem if you have half of $1 billion, like 500 mil, right? If you have 500 mil and you can't live off of that. So that's the funny thing that I always see where guys complain about losing half. It's like, if you lose half and that hurts you, and that ruins your life, and suddenly, you're struggling and life is hard, and you're in the doghouse, as they say, then your life wasn't great at all. You didn't achieve a level that half of your wealth, right, half of everything, is still extraordinary a lot, right? Where you can, because you're supposed to be living less than your means anyway. You're supposed to spend half of your income to live your life. That way you always have half left over for savings, for generational wealth, and for future situations like divorce. Well, she takes half, that's cool. You can still afford the lifestyle you live because you only needed half to live, right? And all you have to do is probably just cut down your expenses after that, and live less than that. But another thing I would do, because I'm a real man, right, is I'll make sure that I have ways of making money, assets that generate me money outside of my name, outside of my relationship, right, marriage and whatnot, that generates me money, right? So that way I can recoup my losses. So if I give her half, which wouldn't be the actual amount, but let's say I give her half, like half of $1 billion, for example, I could always make that 500 mil back easily, because I have things in place that will guarantee I can always make the money back. That's the thing about money. You can always make it back if you're smart. If you work for money, then yeah, life is hard. But if you make sure your money makes you money, then you have infinite money. And infinite money means you never have divorce issues, you never have marriage issues, dating issues. You never have these issues. That's why there's guys who literally been married like 4 or 5 times, and their wives more likely took 50% of everything, right? But they still keep getting married and they still doing good. Why? Because they're smart. So you gotta get smart. You gotta go on Google and start learning how to protect your money, so that way they can They only can take half of what you allow them to take half of, instead of taking half of everything that you possess, because that's your fault if you allow that. That shows you have no control of your life. That means your life is definitely not stable if her taking half literally ruins you financially. Like, that don't make no sense. That means your finances wasn't set up right. It wasn't on point. You didn't have your finances properly set up. You don't have it all together. That's why you plan for marriage. That's why you make. That's why you plan for divorce. You don't just be like, oh, I'll get married and I don't have to worry about divorce. Oh, no. You still got to worry about it. That's why you got to plan for it. Stuff like prenup is not perfect, but it's better to have it than not. Setting up your money and how you access your money and stuff like that. Set that up in a way that makes it hard for anyone else to get access to it without your permission. Right? Because the only one that's really taking half your money is the government. So if you make sure the government can't take your money, half of it, and give it to someone else, then they can't, right? So have control of your money, have control of your relationships, have control of your dick, have some dick discipline. Stop being incels out here talking about body counts matter, when in reality it doesn't matter to you because you're not in a position for it to matter, for it to be of any importance. So I can say body count matters, but most of y'all can't. So y'all definitely need to improve yourselves. Try to do better. What else? What other advice I can give y'all to be better? Learn to talk to females, man. Improve your ability to talk to them, right? Because when you're that guy, yeah, you can talk about body count. You could be that guy that she deliberately tries to not add to her body count, right? In my younger years, I've talked to some females who, started being available to some guys because she wants to be liked. And I understand, you want to be popular, liked by the guys. I get it. But you don't have to be liked by the guys that way, if you know what I mean, right? So you don't need to make your body available to these guys, right? You can hold out. If that's the only reason you're making yourself available is because you want them to like you, well, don't make yourself available. Wait until the right guy who likes you for you right off the bat, then he's the one who gets it. Not you give yourself and then you get the like afterwards, right? Get the like first. He needs to like you and respect you first, and then you can reward him with access. The problem is some females literally use it as a way of getting guys to be nice to them. It's like, no. Guys should be nice to you, period, right? Period. They should be nice to you if they like you. They fucks with you. Don't try to give them a treat, basically. Don't reward them or bribe them to be nice to you. They should be nice to you by default, and then you reward them because they're already nice to you. Don't bribe them. That's what I said. Reward them, don't bribe them. That's what I'm saying. And, I've helped some females avoid the streets. Definitely a lot of my exes, I made sure they avoided the streets. I taught them, obviously what a good man looks like, what a real man looks like. So I'm the standard for the guys that they, look to. So I'm definitely happy about that. That at least I didn't make them for the streets. I didn't make their life worse by being a bad example. I was a good example, and I'm typically a good example for many people. I give good advice, of course, and that's helped them be better, do better. Because typically most females, after breakups and stuff like that, they tend to do worse. There's only one female that I broke up with that didn't do as good as she could have done, but not as bad as she would have if it wasn't for me being, you know, a good influence on her. But she's one of the few that would say, you know, that probably would say I'm toxic. Maybe not now. Maybe now she, you know, she come to realization the truth of who really was the toxic one. But other than that, most of my exes definitely doing better. But typically that's not the case. Most exes that are female, obviously, tend to do worse. Guys tend to do better after breakups. Females typically don't. But at least I can say my exes are doing better, and I'm happy for them. Well, that's the end of the video.